What we're going to do now is we're going to talk about sketching screens and devices. The reason we want to do this is because what we need is a quick way of representing all of the things that people are going to actually use for computing. Screens are easy. All we really need for screens is a rectangle. Sometimes we'll do multiple screens, frequently not. We're not going to do a lot of real screen layout design using our pencil and paper. We're going to use PowerPoint for that. It actually works much faster and much better. But sometimes what we just really need to do is get down how it is we're going to lay out our screen. So for example, I happen to be looking over here at my Gmail, and it has a simple layout that looks like this. Has a button here, has a set of things written over here, has another button down here, has a bank of buttons here, and a type in box here. Then what I'm going to have is I'm going to have a whole series of columns. That's a very quick sketch. That's basically the way Gmail looks for us. I might put a logo up here. That took me very little time to convey the essence of exactly the way Gmail is laid out. At this level, I really don't want to go deeper detail than that. What I may want to do is I may want to add, some particular things that we're talking about, like let's say we're discussing search terms and how it works with mail. Okay, and then I may want to flesh this whole thing out in a darker color to tell the story. That's all I want. Very little more than that. Let's take a minute and talk about the various widgets that we might use. So again, widgets are simple rectangles, almost always. But there's a few things we can do that will help. I'm going to use the fat pencil, which I normally don't, but it will help you see what I'm doing. Most buttons are created with a three-dimensional look to them. That's really easy to produce. Just give them a shadow like that and a label. For type in text boxes, again a rectangle, but most of these are done with an indentation. So a little thing like that to make it look like it's sinking in, and then I've got text. Typically I'd fill that in with what I wanted to write it with. Scroll bars. Scroll bars are a rectangle, another rectangle, and again this rectangle here has some dimensionality to it. A little bit like that will make it stick out. Again, these buttons have a little dimensionality to them. That's it. We don't need anything more than that. That's very quick, very easy. Everybody knows that's a scroll bar. Another one that comes along, I'm actually going to need my... another one that we find a lot is the tab. I need a couple of guidelines here. So first thing you do is grab the tab that you want to show that is forward, and make sure that it has a clean line gap right here. Okay, and then I'm going to have a series of other tabs behind it, and their details aren't as important. What I'll frequently do though with this one is I'll give the selected one some dimensionality so that everybody's clear that it's standing out. Buttons, text boxes, scroll bars, tabs, basic layout, that's what you're doing with screens. Nothing very complicated, very simple. You can learn how to throw those together very quickly. Okay, let's talk about handheld devices. Handheld devices, particularly phones, are a tilted rectangle. Looks like this. Nobody ever holds their handheld device straight up and down. And then it almost always is good to put a hand, because that communicates that this is a handheld device. So I'll put a thumb on it like this. I don't like the way that hand's looking. So I'll put a thumb on it like this. Sometimes it helps put a little bump on that thumb so it's going out. And then all I'll do is come over here and put 3 fingers. One of the things you learn from Disney characters is that you don't need all the fingers. It just doesn't matter. You can add a 4th finger there if you want, but it just doesn't matter. And then always there's a screen, looks like this. Now, having done that, blocking that in is not very hard. Let me get my thumb in first. Then get this. I want to give it a little dimensionality. Makes it look like a real solid thing. That's it. Handheld computer. Takes very little time. Then I can start to put in here the widgets I want, the things I want to do. Okay? Tablet is equivalently easy, except people tend to hold them differently. So a tablet is bigger, and let's say I'm imagining. It's actually important to talk about how I want to hold this thing, because the use case, is it laying down on the table? Is it propped up on something? In this case, I want to communicate that it's being held in one hand. Okay, it's not a pretty hand. Don't care. Let me get rid of that hidden line right there. Okay, everybody knows that that's being held in one hand, which frequently is important to the story we're trying to tell. So when we're talking about handheld devices, we're talking about hands. From there on, it's just simple tipped rectangles. Fill in the details as you want. Okay, laptop computers, they're pretty quick and easy. Okay, all we care about is having them when they're open. We rarely interact with them when they're closed. Okay, it's a shape like that. It's 2 tipped rectangles. Then I usually take this part here. That's keyboard. Take this part here. That's a screen. Maybe for my purposes I need a camera here, because I'm going to talk about how we're going to do camera interaction. Maybe I need a mouse. Okay, all I need is an oval. You want to give it a little dimension, just a little line there. A little dimension, lines here and here. Okay, very simple. Communicate what it is we're trying to do. I left out a touchpad if that was important to put a touchpad in. Again, remember, we're telling a story. What's important to this story? If the mouse isn't important, leave it out. If the camera is important, don't care. If the touchpad isn't significant, don't care. Tell what has to happen in the story. So there you've got a quick set of devices: screens, widgets, handhelds, tablets, laptops. You're good to go. You can create a story about interactive behavior in a mobile setting.